Back in 1951, 47 men from 10 NATO countries reportedly came together for the first senior course at the NATO Defense College. Since then, this academic institution has sought to advance the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's mission through education, research, and training. We have details coming up next. Hello and welcome. You're watching Issues and Insiders for this Friday afternoon, July 12th, here in South Korea. I'm Min Sunhee. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with the commandant of the NATO Defense College, Lieutenant General Max A.L.T. Nielsen, for his thoughts on the importance of integrated academic pursuits to advancing NATO's broader defense interests. Lieutenant General Nielsen, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Right, Lieutenant General, perhaps we can start off with an introduction about the NATO Defense College.
Thank you so much. And I will start continuing from your very nice intro. As you said in your lead-in, the NATO Defense College was created in 1951 by the then Secretary Dwight D. Eisenhower. As you will all recall, we are now talking at the end of the Second World War, and we are building it on the experiences from Allied and coalition warfare during the wartime. The then Supreme Allied Commander realized that getting allies aligned, getting coalition partners to work together, that cannot be taken for granted. So he came to the conclusion that we needed a defense institution that can develop civilians and military personnel to understand the complexities of the challenges we are looking at in front of us, and that is actually contributing or dimensioning how to build a safe and secure environment for allies. So following the creation of NATO, only 2 years later, we created the NATO Defense College, which is now the leading educational and research institute in NATO. We educate allies and partners on contemporary security issues, and we do that in three dimensions. First and foremost, we are an educational institute. So we educate, we train, and we exercise. On top of that, we are conducting engagement activities, and that is, in short, cooperating and reaching out and discussing with partners from all over the globe on matters of common interest and matters where we can cooperate together. Finally, we have a research institute that is focused on matters relevant to the alliance. It is very important that we help our superiors, our decision makers, to make good and sound, lasting decisions. So we are an important element in supporting exactly that with evidence-based and forward-looking research. Finally, I would say what is important to understand that this is the sort of, the over and above educational facility. We are not doing what the nations are doing themselves. We are over and above. We are trying to make sure that we add value to all allies, to all partners. We are not competing with any educational institutions whatsoever.
Right. Lieutenant General Nielsen, the NATO Defense College's first trip to East Asia brought it to South Korea last June. What was the purpose of that trip?
To put it short, first and foremost, it was to learn and understand and to listen. Let me elaborate a little on that. In order for us to make sure we can cooperate and we can build security for all of us together, it starts with the understanding bit. We need to make sure that we have fully understand the perspectives of the Republic of Korea. As you are in the region, what are your thoughts about the region? How do you see the challenges and how do you see the solutions? So that is a lot of discussion, a lot of dialogue, and a lot of listening. As we are discussing, as we are listening, we can actually see, wow, we have way more in common than you would immediately expect looking at the globe. So what is apparent to us and what actually caused the inclusion of our Indo-Pacific partners in the 2022 strategic concept was our security is connected. Global challenges and regional challenges are interconnected. What happens in the Indo-Pacific region also influences the Euro-Atlantic area and vice versa. So to put it short, the main purpose of going to the Republic of Korea was to learn and listen, discuss, understand the common challenges, and actually lay the first ground for continued cooperation between our region and yours.
Right. Then keeping in mind the reality that security is connected, Lieutenant General Nielsen, what do you suppose is the strategic significance of South Korea in strengthening security here in this part of the world?
First and foremost, what comes to mind is what we are up against. Let me start by saying what we are seeing right now in terms of alignment between Russia, DPRK, and China, that is immensely affecting the security of the region and also of the Euro-Atlantic region. So when we look towards how can we strengthen the security for all of us, I think it's very important to recognize that we do have like-minded nations all over the planet. What is dear to you is dear to us. Fundamental principles like individual freedom that we tend to take for granted, democratic values, human right, rule of law, that is absolutely fundamental for our societies and the way we coordinate, cooperate, trade, and act. That is absolutely important. So I think as we are seeing an alignment of autocratic regimes, the importance of cooperating closer and partnering closer between like-minded nations simply increase. So to me, it is relatively obvious that when we are talking, discussing with our friends and partners in the Indo-Pacific, that we move closer, we discuss, we grow smarter, we grow stronger, and we look for areas of cooperation.
Right. And speaking about partnering, Lieutenant General Nielsen, there was also a visit to the Korea National Defense University by the NATO Defense College. Speaking within your capacity as the commandant of NATO Defense College, how important do you suppose is education in ensuring cooperation for broader security?
Well, I would say education is nothing but vital. It is absolutely crucial. As I was alluding to just a half a minute ago, without an appropriate understanding of the challenges we have in front of us, the chances to develop comprehensive, long-lasting solutions to our common challenges is less. It's absolutely not there. So what we need to do is to make sure that the future leaders of our nations, of our armed forces, of our diplomacies and so forth, that they are as well educated as possible with an understanding on what are actually the elements of the contemporary challenges we are looking at. It starts with education. And what we are trying to accomplish by visiting the Korea National Defense University is to see what is your approach to the challenges we are looking at, and then we combine with what is our approach to the same challenges. And we really not surprising, we have a large degree of commonality in identifying the challenges and also on what we need to do about it. So following a discussion, following a visit to the National Defense University, it is clear to us we have a lot of areas where we can exchange research, we can exchange curriculum, and we can exchange lecturers and so forth, and actually make both ends of the cooperation stronger. So I think that's one of the most important part. And I can add to this that it's not only the bilateral cooperation that is important for NATO and the NATO Defense College. Before we had the opportunity to meet with the General Lim Ki-hoon, a very strong and good leader of the Korean National Defense University. A month earlier, we met in Washington at the commandants at the Conference of Commandants, which NATO Defense College hosts once a year. So take that bilateral cooperation we are building with the National Defense University of Korea. We are also trying to reach out to all educational institutes all around the world. 59 institutes was together in Washington, including the Korean National Defense University.
Right, I see. Good to know. Lieutenant General Nielsen, generally speaking, what role do you suppose can Korea, South Korea, play as a partner country of NATO, do you think?
I think to start with my point about making sure that we keep like-minded nations together, that is absolutely crucial. As you will probably recall, the collaboration between NATO and the Republic of Korea started back in 2005. So it's not that it is a new invention. It is simply a sort of cooperation that has grown over the years, culminating, if I may choose that word, in the 2022 strategic concept, where we actually, from the NATO side, identified South Korea, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand as important key NATO partners in the Indo-Pacific. The role that Korea can play stems from our common values. But also, if we look at Korea as a nation, if I'm not mistaken, Korea is ranking amongst the 15 strongest economies in the world. We're talking about a country that ranks in the top 5 of exporting countries. And if we talk about arms export, Korea ranks around 10th, I think. So Korea, with its capacity in terms of technology, innovation, building on a like-minded approach with common values, is immensely important for everyone who wants to safeguard the principles and the values we try to hold dear. In this time of age, when we're looking around what's going on with the Russian war against Ukraine and so forth, there's only more reason to make sure we stick closer together. North Korea is, of course, a primary concern to the Republic of Korea, but also on a larger regional and a larger global scale, we have something where we need the support from one another. In that context, the Republic of Korea is immensely important. Values, technological strengths, innovation, possibilities for cooperation.
Right. As you mentioned earlier, NATO's interactions with its partners here in the Indo-Pacific region have been growing. Would it be practical to assume then that NATO's concerns over security within this part of the world are also growing?
What I think is safe to say is that the challenges we are looking at are interlinked. I would say, as we see the alignment between autocratic regimes being stronger, being more apparent, it is a concern. It is a concern. NATO has to condemn what is going on right now in terms of support to Russia's illegal war on Ukraine. So the alignment, the interlinkedness is of concern. I would not go as far as and say that the security concerns are growing, but I definitely see the alignment that is taking place between China, DPRK, and Russia. That is indeed concerning. So what I think we need to do is we need to keep an eye on, so what can we do to represent a sane opposition to the alignment that is ongoing? And in my mind, that is further closer cooperation between like-minded nations, where we actually can get together and have a look at what is really, really of our concern. The war in Ukraine, disinformation, technology, innovation, cyber, areas that affect us all the time. Obvious areas where we need to come together, we need to work closer. And in that respect, we are challenged by the increased alignment between the autocratic regimes. And to this extent, we need to be as strong and as close together as can be.
Right. Lieutenant General Nielsen, you mentioned the war in Ukraine. That being said, what do you believe are the risks of a wider war with Russia in Europe?
Well, the first answer must be logically the risk of war is not growing, and let me explain why. NATO is from the very outset built with the purpose of avoiding war, not waging war. So what we have been doing since the first Russian attack on Ukraine, the accession of Crimea, the occupation of Donbass in 2014, and up till today, we have strengthened the security and the defense capacity of NATO. The sole purpose of that is not to prepare to wage war. That is simply to safeguard our allies. And with the defense buildup we have seen over the most recent years, I would argue that the defense capacity is already by now so strong, so it would be extremely illogical for anybody to take on NATO in any way and mean. Without doubt, NATO is the strongest military alliance the world has ever seen. We have managed to safeguard the safety and security for more than 1 billion people for 75 years. I do not see any risk for Russia to take on any NATO nation. The Article 5 commitment of NATO allies is ironclad, and we are prepared to defend every inch of NATO territory. Now, I simply hope that this fact also dawns on Russia and President Putin. So logically, we should not look towards a higher risk for war. The deterrence should prevail, and the futility of waging war with Russia should be apparent to any opponent to NATO.
And staying with Russia, Lieutenant General Nielsen, earlier this week, a North Korean delegation of military training officials from the Kim Il-sung Military University headed for Russia. What do you suppose might be the purpose of this particular trip? And should we here in South Korea be concerned?
Well, as I just said, I think the primary concern to us is that this is probably another element of the alignment. I am choosing the alignment analogy because we are not talking about alliances. The fragility of whatever cooperation is going on between China, DPRK, and Russia is nothing but an alignment. But that alignment is concerning. And I think the trip you're talking about, even though, of course, I don't have any details about it, I see that as a step in the ongoing alignment. Without doubt, North Korea is heavily supporting Russia, the ammunition, technology, and so forth, so they can continue wage their illegal war on Ukraine. So the alignment is counter to our interest. It's counter to Euro-Atlantic security. And that would, I say, that is the most concerning bit of such a trip. It's adding to the alignment. That is not in our interest.
Given North Korea's persistent provocations, here in South Korea, defense strategy remains a very key pillar of national interests. That being said, what are your thoughts regarding South Korea's defense industry, which you mentioned earlier was quite remarkably strong?
Exactly. And I think, what we need to do as partners with common values, with shared values, with shared concerns, we need to be thankful for the capacity our nation holds within. Without doubt, the Republic of Korea has a really strong defense industry. It is obvious to all that NATO is very concerned about ramping up our defenses, not only in quality, but also in quantity. And it is also apparent that a lot of nations reach out beyond European border, beyond Euro-Atlantic borders to find capacity to ramp up our defenses. And it is, of course, evident to all that the defense capacity of Korea are very strong indeed. We are looking at the K9 howitzers, we are looking at the KF-21 fighters, etc., and so forth, medium SAM missile systems, and so forth. it is yet another piece of why we need to stick together. So we make sure that the defense capacities we have as partners, as allies, support the common values, support the individual freedom, support democracy, and actually is a strong opposition to autocratic regimes and continued alignment.
Right, to ensure, of course, peace and stability here and elsewhere around the world. Lieutenant General Nielsen, we have like about a minute or two left. Let's end with a few words about the NATO Defense College's plans for the near future.
Thank you so much. And I'll be happy to round it up with that. The purpose of me being here and the purpose of the NATO Defense College is without doubt to add value to allies, to add value to partners. We monitor closely the global and evolving security landscape, and we make sure that we constantly adapt accordingly. So while committing to our core values, we will have to focus more on collective defense. We'll have to focus more on partnering with like-minded across the globe, and we will make sure that we build the capacity to safeguard what we all hold dear.
Right. All right, Lieutenant General Nielsen, the commandant of the NATO Defense College, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Right. Well, that ends this edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. See you same time next Monday.